had, they described as Rudrasya Anucharo. They were associates of Lord Shiva, Anu means follower. So they were attached to Lord Shiva, they had a relationship with Shiva in a very elevated way. And so consequently, they had access to this very special garden, which is called Pushpite Vane, flower garden. Van generally means forest, like in Vrindavan. And Pushpa, of course, is flowers. So a flower garden. And there they are with their girlfriends, and they're drinking and laughing, and as we shall find, up to things. We'll come across that in the next few verses. A very familiar picture, actually. They're, two wealthy sons of a very wealthy man. In this case, the most wealthy. And they've inherited past, amount of privilege, and money is the most dangerous of all. They say, of all the different corruptions, money is the most corrupt, because with money, everything else comes. So they have tons of money, and they can go anywhere, open any door. And of course, there's lots of people like this today in the world. There always have been. Here, of course, in London, is a magnet for these kind of people. When they get a lot of money. Anywhere in the world, anyone who, especially a young man who's got lots of money, he wants to come to London. At least to have a penthouse or something in London. Especially if if he's from the Gulf, where they have strict rules about alcohol and various things. So they think, well, we'll go to London and we can break all the rules. So generally these people, advice that we're given as devotees is, to avoid their association, because they're very attached to material enjoyment. And that atmosphere is a very strong sort of mood of material enjoyment that, even a wise person can be completely carried away in the presence of that. So we have to be careful associating with these people. And sometimes, if they're Hindu, they may just, for whatever reason, they may come to the temple, but we have to be careful how closely we associate with them. If they have a huge sum of money at their disposal, chances are they're using it in many undesirable ways. And, well, in this case, they're drinking, but there's various kinds of madness that can come. There's, that's one kind of madness from being drunk, but there's also madness from just sheer possession of vast sums of power and money. That's also an intoxicant. But then on another, I was also thinking in another way, these young men have been born into fortunate family, and so they have access to special places. Of course, as soon as you start to travel, if you've grown up, like I have, I grew up in the southeast of England, and my father was a doctor, so we were never short of money. Well, he used to borrow money from me. He used to give me pocket money and then come back and ask me for money, but that's another story. But many of us, more or less, we've had privileged lives. By comparison with the vast majority of people on this planet, just to be born in a place like a country like England is a great fortune. I remember I was once talking to the man who used to be the head Swami at the Ram Krishna mission years ago, Swami Bhavananda, is no longer alive, Bhavayananda. And he had actually lived in Vrindavan. He was a nice man. And I was interviewing him for a book I was writing about economics, and he was explaining how, well, you know, the British came to India and they took all our wealth. And that's true. You know, why is this country wealthy? Because a certain section of the population of this country have become very expert in exploiting other parts of the planet and extracting money. And they're less expert now, actually. They were more expert, and they were feared wherever they would go, these British entrepreneurs, who usually came backed with armies. And, you know, they could take anything, they could just go anywhere and take anything. It's not quite so easy for them to do it now. And the wealth of this country is based on that. So he was saying, he was talking about that, and I said, oh yes, I don't agree with any of that. You know, I would never have wanted to have anyone exploited in my name. He said, oh, it's all very well for you to say that, but you have benefited from it. You know, you went to good schools, you were brought up in beautiful surroundings, you had everything you wanted, so you cannot avoid the karma just by saying, oh, I didn't agree with that. I mean, it's true that just living in this world, you know, we do get caught up in so much karma. But we grow, you know, just being born into these better off countries, we already are indebted to the poorer people of the planet and to their forebears who sacrificed so much unwillingly so that we could, you know, have such nice lifestyle. Worth thinking about anyway. So Prabhupada talks about in the purport here, he talks about how these, they got this particular favour of access to this particular flower garden, these wealthy sons, because they were devotees of Lord Shiva. And so then he starts talking about demigod worship, which is always a bit of a puzzle for most of us, because most of us probably never worshipped demigods. And we, you know, because of, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is rather forthright when he speaks about demigod worship. And the verse that Prabhupada is quoting here is one that occasionally can be somewhat misquoted, in my opinion. This is the verse which the English translation, Prabhupada's translation, says, "Those whose minds are distorted by material desires surrender to the demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures." And actually the Sanskrit word for desire is a well-known word, kama, K-A-M-A, not K-R-M-A, which sometimes is also translated as lust. So those whose minds are overcome with lust worship the demigods. I remember we used to, in days long gone by, used to stay with a family in Wolverhampton called the Bari family, and their shrine in their house had every conceivable, you know, demigod and Krishna, and they were actually tremendously supportive of us. They used to let us stay there as long as we liked, and they, you know, feed us and take us to visit their friends, put on programs for us, and donate money. They were wonderful.